Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh my god, so I have thoughts. I made faster things. But anyways, hello, welcome to the Semi-Bookish podcast. Adrian.
That's the sound of Grant. We're torturing him.
Yes.
Sorry, Grant.
That's okay. It's gotta happen.
We do that every other podcast.
Every other podcast. This is that every other podcast. This is Adrian District Library's podcast where we talk about books and nerdy stuff and whatever we want. So, yeah.
Hence the semi.
Semi,
Yes.
of course.
And the ish.
And the
there's
ish.
that, yes. But we don't
All right.
talk about semis. We might talk a little ish, but you know.
We're not talking about semis. We're not talking about trucks. Are you
beep, beep?
sure?
Beep beep semis or some other kind of semi that I'm not pretty.
Is there another semi?
I don't know.
Anyways, Grant, we're just gonna get right into it today.
Hey.
Grant, what are you watching, playing, reading,
Driving.
I'll do it.
entertaining yourself with?
Well, I'll try to answer in order. I think you asked what am I watching first?
Yeah, I didn't
whatever.
hear which direction
Okay.
you're going.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff recently.
Ooh, yeah.
I've seen a lot of stuff.
I've seen so much stuff you people wouldn't even believe.
Wow.
Are you sure?
I've only seen like 2 movies. So
And
I'm trying to remember exactly what they are. So I'll tell you what I'm reading. I'm reading Purity and oh gosh, what is it? It's by Mary Douglas. Oh God, she's an anthropologist. Purity and Pollution, I believe.
Yeah?
It's gonna be wrong.
it's okay. I'm gonna look it up.
No, and it's kind of exactly about what it is. She's trying to track the origins of the concepts of like taboo and
Sure.
pollution, dirt, why certain things are
Purity and danger.
purity and danger. Yes,
Oh.
yes. I don't know why I couldn't think of it, but
That's right.
not that far in it. It's good so far. She spent the entire second chapter trashing the Golden Bough. So that's
That
interesting.
book gets
And it was getting trashed in one of the Otto Ronk books I was reading too. So
really.
people don't like him.
Yeah, no, it's not a credible. Or it's not considered, I should say, it's not considered credible.
Yeah.
Have you read The Golden Bough?
I have not read
I
I've read
haven't
about the Golden Bough. It seems like generally people's problems with it is it's very simplistic breakdown of like the evolution of because isn't it like about the history of magic almost
I
or like
think
the idea
that's
of magic?
the idea, yeah. Because it often gets used in like crap fantasy plots about like, you know, we're gonna find the Golden Bough, and it's like, yeah, sure. Like it even cropped up in an anime I was watching. I think it crops up in Eureka 7 at one point
It's had a lot
randomly.
influence, like even if it's more or less been discredited, you know. I mean, however, you know,
It's sort of I feel like it's sort of like the apocryphal text for all anthropology.
yeah, like it has an important part in the history of anthropology.
Yeah,
but
I snagged a copy of the Golden Bough when it came in.
I know you did.
Yeah, yes, because I was like, I need this. This is important. It's 880 pages, so
Do you like torturing yourself? Like, are you sure you want to read 880 pages?
I mean, I'm not going to read it, but
describes our ancestors' primitive methods of worship, sex practices, strange rituals, and festivals. What's not to like?
I think
800 pages.
Yeah, no, I know. Yes. You were saying.
I think Mary Douglas, like her personal problem with it is, in addition to like this oversimplification, his whole thing is like, look at all of these primitive things that we have grown past. All this,
I see.
Whereas Mary Douglas is saying, no, this kind of magical, illogical thinking it's the bedrock of all.
Yeah,
of all
it's
of it.
more
That's-
foundational than throwaway.
Yeah, no.
So it's
that's-
almost like we can't escape it.
Yeah, and it's a similar thing to what Ronk had to say about it.
Sure. No, that's interesting.
Oh yeah, and I was going to talk about what I've seen.
Yeah.
I just went to the theaters. I saw The Bike Riders,
Oh.
which is solid.
Yeah.
I'm in general a fan of Mike Nichols. I think that's his name, the writer-director.
Okay.
He's made some really good movies. He's made some not so great movies. This is kind of firmly in the middle. It's
Sure.
a solid flick. All the performances are great. You got Tom Hardy, you got Austin Butler.
Wow. You can't go wrong,
no,
right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're both great.
Michael Shannon.
All three. Oh.
Yeah, Michael Shannon doesn't have a very large role, but he makes his few scenes definitely count.
Yeah. The only time I've ever disliked Michael Shannon is in a movie that I love, and I love watching him kind of fumble this character
Really?
along. Yeah, Man of Steel. I hated him in Man of Steel.
Oh, you don't like him as Zod?
No, I don't. But I don't like his interpretation of Zod. However, it is fun watching him play his interpretation of Zod against the rest of this wonderfully bizarre movie. I mean, I love it. We all know I'm a big Man of Steel apologist. But it is a wonderfully bizarre film, and casting Michael Shannon as Zod is one of those choices that I was like, all right, bold choice, sure.
It is an interesting choice. He wouldn't be my first go-to, but
you know.
I mean,
overall, I
it's
usually enjoy it.
it's not. It's definitely Diet Scorsese. I'd say.
Interesting. Okay.
Where like you follow the rise and fall of this group of people, not too dissimilar from say Goodfellas or something.
Sure.
And I feel like that's where it's best for me outside of like the individual performances because like when this bike club was originally started by Tom Hardy's character, you know, he's a middle class white guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's doing it to waste some time, and then.
Sure.
As the thing kind of grows out of his control, then you get people from less privileged backgrounds joining, and they actually, you know, have different ideas about how they want to run this thing. And he's like, okay, this is kind of getting out of my control, and stuff happens.
That's interesting.
And I feel like that aspect is handled very well.
Yeah.
Is it worth paying $10 to go to the theaters to watch it? Go there on matinee.
I was going to say, it's even worth more on a Tuesday when it's $5.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely better than the director's last film, so I would recommend it.
Okay. And then?
I forget what else I've watched. Games, I've been playing a lot of Dark and Darker. I don't know if... It's fun. It's a steep learning curve. It's just kind of wonky in general. In a lovable way.
Yeah.
I feel like roguelikes or dungeon crawlers or anything like that.
Sure.
Aaron.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, how the tables...
It is my...
How the turntables.
It is my book we're discussing today, so I suppose I should go last.
Normal book-wise, reading A Dreadful Splendor, B.R. Myers' spooky Gothic romance.
Okay, yeah.
Love that. Also murder mystery at the same time, because we love that for
sure. Yeah, throw it all in.
There's that.
I like how you're always reading kitchen sink books.
Yes.
So it's never just like one thing. It's like, and all of the genres got thrown in.
The thing that I like the most, and I'll explain this also when I'm talking about the book that we're discussing later and my things, is I like books that have just like a lot happening.
Yeah.
And I think that just might be the ADHD in me, is if there is not a lot happening, there's still, this is why I can't read Jane Austen either. If there's just like, you know.
Because they just talk the whole book.
A lot.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with this one later, but whatever.
Yeah.
If there's just a lot of talking and there's not much like plot action, there's not much happening, I'm just like, eh.
I think that's probably also why anime was
a big thing for me.
big thing, because there's you're never like, I don't think I've ever seen an anime where all they do is talk. Like, even the smaller, shorter ones, like, there's always something happening.
Even the romance animes, there's something happening.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a fair point.
And then, because I said I would do this last time, and then I never did, but, you know, it's really entertaining. Fan fiction-wise...
Yes.
I said I would say.
The fan fiction corner.
Fan fiction corner. Hi. I'm reading 2 different fan fictions right now. The first one is called Liminal Space. Oh. And Liminal Space is a dimension travel, multiverse kind of version of Batfam. It is basically, because I like my Tim Drake-centric...
Sorry, you guys can't see this. I just leaned in.
You know, I love my Tim Drake-centric, like, things, and we all know that I like wumpy things where, like, my characters are in some type of hurt and they need some type of, like, human interaction help.
Sure. I like that word, wumpy.
Yeah.
Wump is an actual tag that you can look up in AO3.
WUMP?
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Another episode...
Like Wump. Is that kind of the idea? Or?
No. So Wump is like the idea that your character is getting hurt, no comfort, and they're just getting basically... You could use this a lot with... Try, No Way Home?
Yes.
Spider-Man, and the very end, where he's like...
Oh, yes, constant. Yes, no, I get you.
Where he's just putting himself through horrible stuff the whole entire time.
Basically, the whole movie is him descending into worse and worse things, trying to solve a problem that he can't solve. Yes.
But
without spoiling
this can also be like, so for Tim Drake wise, anybody who reads Red Robin knows that at one point, you know, he loses the title of Robin and he's gonna go find Bruce, like Wayne, those kind of things.
Sure.
And he loses his spleen, like,
no.
you know, like those kind of things happen.
I see.
That's kind of Wump, where he's put through, like, horrible acts, and sometimes there's comfort, sometimes there's not.
Right.
In Peter Parker land, you usually have this coincided with Tony Stark being a dad as the comfort aspect of things.
So it's very Greek tragedy.
Yes.
Actually.
So
That's
this
really
one instead is Tim Drake is basically done with, I think this is after Bruce comes back, and he's just sitting there, and he's basically all on his own as Red Robin now. He's not as part of the whole entire Bat fam.
Right.
Because he considers himself basically, as what Jason Todd calls him, a replacement. And he considers himself the replacement. And now that Damian has taken over as Robin, he feels that he is not needed anymore in the whole entire Wayne family structure. Despite the fact that he's still CEO of the company. But we're going to put that aside for a moment.
Oh, God. Bat fam has gone...
No,
places, which I enjoy, but I'm like, wait, what?
No, like, in fanfiction, it goes nuts.
Okay,
so, in this one specifically, Tim has just been rescued by Batman. Nobody can see what I'm doing except for the two people in the room, but he's been rescued by Batman after being kidnapped by the Riddler for 4 days. So he's a little bit out of it at the moment, and he thinks he's hallucinating Batman rescuing him. Turns out it's not his Batman. This is Young Justice Batman, who found him, and
So
is
what's
like...
the distinction there between, like, Young Justice?
So, Young Justice Batman is actually rather interesting because he doesn't do much.
No.
Because if you had Batman come into Young Justice as often as he maybe wouldn't otherwise, it wouldn't give... Nightwing very much to do because Nightwing's sort of like the captain of the ship.
Okay, so it's like the Teen Titans kind of.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I don't
So,
know,
But
like,
the thing with this is he's hallucinated this, and I've read this before, so I can kind of spoil this. But this is great because basically what happens is Young Justice Batman is like, "Oh, you're a child," and he kind of fights it for a hot minute, but then he just kind of is like, "You're my Dick Grayson now. Congrats!" And steals Tim from the original Bat fam. Of his universe, and it gets to a point where there's like dimension hopping happening because people are like it's like
so it's that's okay.
We get into multiverse a little bit here because Young Justice is in the wrong universe. Kidnaps Tim, takes him back, like when he figures out what's going on, and basically steals him. And so this is kind of like a found family. Like I might not find. This is multiverse compared like with found family together,
right?
And it's basically like Tim's like I can't find my family in this universe. But maybe I'll find it here. And so he finds it here. And this is like a whole entire like series.
Oh,
so
that's
this is
cool.
only part 1.
Yeah.
But there's like a whole other bunch of different like one-shots that are attached to it.
Nice,
and then the other one I'm reading is a Naruto fan fiction because I can. And it's called Satori. And basically it's when before they even become ninjas and they're like still in the academy, they get sent on a work field experience kind of thing. And Sakura, because I like my Sakura-centric storylines, gets sent to the torture and intelligence division. And basically wins the hearts of everyone around her because while she's a paper ninja, I use quotation marks, everyone. But while she's a paper ninja, she basically turns around and using her knowledge and her smarts and things like that, they realize, oh, she'd be really good at this. And it becomes like a whole thing where she's basically like becomes that and comes into her own outside of having to deal with all of the other kids in her class and you know all the if you know Sakura's storyline, you know her storyline. And then meanwhile I'm playing Dragon Age Origins because I said I would start that before.
Yes, before the new game.
I'm gonna cry when I get to the fade.
What kind of character do you have?
Oh, I always play City Elf female. Because if you know anything about Dragon Age Origins and the City Elf origin, it is like the most honestly, and I'm so mad that they still don't include this anyways, City Elf origin is one of the most like craziest origins. Basically you're put in a wedding because that's how it works. And I would say that the city elves would be the easiest way I can explain city elves to people historically is city elves are a lot like when segregation like they're segregated into their own area. And
I see.
They are a minority, but they are also basically like treated horribly. Like people who were segregated.
Yeah, so they're oppressed.
They're basically really oppressed.
That's interesting.
Is this opposed to the Wood Elves? Sorry.
Yeah, this is opposed to the I forget their name.
The non-city elves, but yeah.
The non-city elves.
Yeah.
But basically you're put into a wedding, and one of the how do I explain it? The nobles comes down, and he likes to come and cause a whole bunch of problems when he's drunk. It's like his whole entire favorite thing to do.
You know.
And so he decides the best thing to do, and this is really, really fun if you're the female city elf. If you're the male city elf, it's a little bit like meh, but it makes it more entertaining if you're the female city elf. Is that he steals all of the women from the wedding party and takes them back to his castle or like his home in of an attempt to assault them. As like a thing.
Sure.
But you are the female city elf, and this is how I play it. And you can turn around and they have your cousin. Like in a whole other room. They have your cousin and you're like, not today.
Yeah.
And you go attack some guards, steal all of their stuff, and go run rampant and kill basically everyone in the human noble thing.
That is really cool.
And then your fiance, who you were supposed to be marrying, comes in with your male cousin to help save you.
Yeah.
But you guys meet like halfway. So like it's a thing where you guys meet each other up. It's like a whole thing.
Sure,
it's really cute.
sure.
But he dies saving you. Like protecting you, trying to protect
that's
you.
interesting. Yeah.
And so you are this woman who is now scorned. You are now a widow because you were just married. Wearing your wedding ring, your dress is now covered in like blood and guts, and you're just like, great, guess what we're gonna do? And so you kill the human noble, and that's what leads you to becoming a Grey Warden, is because you are about to be like put to death.
And then you have to make a
Yes.
Yeah, that's
And it's
fascinating.
great.
That's
It is like
kinda
one
cool.
of my favorite little like origin stories in that whole game.
Yeah.
And I can rant for hours on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And then I'm playing Sims with vampires because I can.
Yeah.
Anyways, Tony, I've ranted enough.
I am. What am I watching right now? I'm just gonna say that tonight I'm actually very excited to start The Bear, season 1, because I have
The
not.
Bear?
Yes.
Like
so
a bear or like a man bear?
no, it's a show that's set in. It's a drama that's set in a kitchen. It's not just a kitchen, but a restaurant. It's a restaurant. Does he own the restaurant? I'm never clear on that.
So I have seen the second half of season 2, and what I saw was very good.
Okay,
But I don't
sure.
know how it starts really.
Okay.
I mean, I know some background stuff.
Yeah, I know he works in a restaurant, and the central character is played by Jeremy Allen White, who was
the month flavor.
he was my favorite Shameless character of all the siblings. He was Lip, for anybody who's familiar with
Lip.
Shameless. Yeah. So
Did you not like Ian? I'm just kidding.
I love Ian, but Lip, if I had to choose between Lip and Ian, it would be Lip all day long. Even though I could easily score with Ian because he's kind of easy. But it's all about Lip. Lip is just fantastic. I know, yes. Anyway, and I'm not alone because the number of women who are watching the show because Jeremy Allen White is amazing, and I love it. But I'm just interested both in, he's attractive, so there's that. But as an actor, I'm interested in, like, what this show is doing for him that Shameless couldn't do because of his position in the show or whatever. Anyway, I think he's really talented, and I'm interested to see how he builds from here. So I'm excited to start watching that. Okay, actually, I can say this. So I've been listening to a lot of radio dramas that were, I want to say they were originally like written and recorded by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is how I come across them as a kid. I might be wrong about that, but I know that you can find them. Like, their website says that their address is in Berrien Springs. The production is called Your Story Hour, and so basically, like, they have all these different stories, just the inspirational stories that they do as radio dramas, but they did a whole run of Bible stories that I've been listening to over again, because I listened to them a lot when I was a kid, partly as research, but partly because sometimes you're like, you love something as a kid and you just have to have it again. And so when I found out I could purchase digital copies of them and listen to them, I just did. So that's been a lot of fun, honestly. And then, because the voice acting is fantastic, and it's so good. So that's another reason that I just really love. And also, radio dramas are fun. So, anyway. I know, I sound like I'm from 1910. And then I'm reading 2 things right now. I'm reading The Legend of Sheba, Rise of a Queen by Tosca Lee, which is a novel. It's good. It's actually very good. But it's taking me longer to read it than I would like. It's got a good pace to it, so it clips along pretty well, but I'm a slow reader. And then the other thing that I just started the other day, because a patron and I were talking about the book that we're all going to talk about today. It was on my favorites shelf, my staff read shelf, and she picked it up because she had read Circe by Madeline Miler. And so I told her, I was like, I haven't read that yet. And she was like, oh, you have to. It's really good. And I'm going to read Song of Achilles. I'm like, good, because it's really good. And so then I was out of the bookstore the day after that. And I was like, where is it? Where is it? And I found it. Of course, it was a paperback copy. And I bought it immediately because it was a paperback copy. And I started reading it. I read chapter 1. It's good. It's confident. But I read it and I turned to Joe and I was like, authors really like tortured characters.
Yep.
And I get it.
Yep.
But okay, sure. So it's, Circe's a pretty tortured character. Her siblings are awful. I want them all to die.
Of course.
I want Circe to actually become good enough of a witch to prank them the way she pranks Odysseus, because they're awful to her. Mm-hmm. And her father, Helios, oh my God. Anyway, I could go on. And it was just the first chapter. And then I'm not playing this, but I am, tonight, another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start playing Assassin's Creed Origins.
Yay!
Because it's set in Egypt. That's the only reason why. I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game since the first one, and I think at the time only the 2 were out. So that's how long it's been since I played an Assassin's Creed game. I think we're at 15 games at this point or something insane. Yeah. So, but I wanted to play the one that's set in Egypt because it's set in Egypt. So
the only Assassin's Creed game I actually own is the one that goes to the Notre Dame. And the only reason I got that game was for free because do you guys remember when the Notre Dame had a fire?
Oh yeah. For a week or something insane like that.
The who was it? Ubisoft?
Ubisoft.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Turned around and they had one of the most accurate renditions of the Notre Dame in the game. And so they put the game out for free right afterwards so that people could get the game.
That's impressive.
That's so funny.
Yeah, because most production companies, especially game company studios, would have milked the cow there, but they
put it out for free so people could grab it.
That's brilliant.
And they did it as a way for people to go, oh, so this is what it actually looks like.
Yeah.
The idea.
No, that's really cool.
But speaking of things that are cool, let's talk about the Song of Achilles.
Yeah, by Madeline Miller.
Madeline Miller, which is what all of us read, or at least are reading in my case, at least.
Yes.
So, thoughts, comments, concerns. Is this your favorite? Because this is the one book that
it's up there.
Anybody asks Tony about books ever, Tony will just start waxing poetic about this book.
I will say, Beloved is my favorite, and will always be my favorite, just because the caliber of writing is better than anything I've ever read in my life. Take that, Shakespeare. And I love Shakespeare, so, Anyway. But I would say Song of Achilles is probably easily my second favorite book of all time. It is... there's something, I think, in the combination of the writing style. It's simple, but I think it's deceptively simple. It's the kind of thing that seems like, oh, anyone could do this, but then you go and try, and it's like, oh, wait, I don't know nearly enough about this. But it's the kind of thing you can tell she's comfortable in that subject.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that her profession?
Yeah.
She's a classics major or something.
Yeah, a classicist. That's what her doctorate and everything was in. And I think she did a translation of a part of the Iliad for her like whatever you need for your doctoral thesis or whatever. But she was like, honestly, I felt like I wasn't qualified enough to actually do a full translation. And like literally a few years after Song of Achilles came out, that Odyssey, that was a female...
The Emily lady.
Yeah, Emily Wilson, I think it is. Yeah, her Odyssey came out, and she was the first woman to fully translate the Odyssey. So that was a big... It was interesting that those things kind of came together. But yeah, I love her like writing because she seems so comfortable with the subject matter. But I also just love how unashamedly gay this book is.
It is very
like it doesn't, like she doesn't care. And I've like seen interviews and read interviews with her, and she like makes a point to say like, I did that on purpose because when I went to study the Iliad and Achilles, first of all, there's a ton of Achilles tales that never make it into the Iliad. But she read the Iliad and was like, I began to be rather suspect of the fact that Achilles loses this person that is a good friend or a cut. Like,
I mean, I was reading into that, and like Greek historians or like Greek authors or writers, whoever, like pretty soon after that time period, they were like, yeah, he's his lover.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, like that's a big thing now with like historians are just kind of like, it's right there.
Yeah. But I remember prior to Song of Achilles being published,
but it was like prior
people would not, like, people would fight you for that. Like, they'd be so mad at you, particularly people who'd read the Iliad and loved it. They were like, no, it's not, and Madeline Miler had the exact opposite reaction. She was like, so he went to pieces and killed everything in sight because he lost his friend? Please. Like, she was just like, absolutely not. And then she, of course, do what you do as a classicist. She dug around and found all these other Achilles stories and was like, oh yeah, no, definitely gay. And she just leaned in. And I'm like, thank you. But I also love that she's telling the story from Patroclus's perspective because in giving him that angle, you get all of this other stuff that you wouldn't get if you were just retelling the Iliad. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's...
I will say that the one thing we get the most of is, what is it, Patroclus?
Yeah, Patroclus,
Patroclus,
yeah.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I call him Pets for short.
Pterodactyl.
I call him Pets for short.
I mean,
because, like,
you might
it's
as
just
well.
Easier.
Yeah.
But, like, to be honest, like, the one thing we get the most of is... he's so dreamy. Oh, yes. Wow, he's so pretty. He's standing there in the middle of battle, and he's not doing a dang thing. He's just standing there. Just like the emoji of the guy just, like, standing there, and we use that when we're going, like, oop. Okay, oop.
Yeah.
Like, we just use the person standing there emoji as, like, the response to that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's how Pet, like, is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, specifically during the battle scenes, is he's just like this, and he's just standing there with the shield that he has on him, and I know he doesn't do anything, but, like, to be honest, it's just really funny, because I just imagine him standing there, and all of this stuff is happening, and I'm like, one, is it just because Achilles is standing next to you, or, like, do you just have some sort of, like, magic armor bubble that exists, that, like, nothing is happening to you, and all you're doing is talking about how pretty he is while he's fighting people, like, hello?
I always took that as a... dare approach Patroclus if you want to, but Achilles is fast and dangerous, so...
Right, but at the same time,
luck.
it feels like a plot armor bubble, in my opinion. Just a smidge.
Maybe.
Just a smidge.
I will say, just today when I was finishing up listening to it, Achilles said, no one will get close to you.
We
Yeah.
understand that nobody's going to get close to him, but at the same time, like, after he says that, like, do you think, like... I'm like... Okay, so plot armor bubble.
I think that's like the myth part of it, right? Because
that
it still
is the
is
myth
like
part of it.
It reads like a historical romance in a way, but it's very.
And I think I just like my things a little bit more nitty gritty in that aspect, because if I were writing it and I were like doing it, I would want somebody to touch. I would want. Like, and granted, this is also because I like my characters even more tortured than what Madeline Miler wants to torture her.
But Patroclus had he was beating up his whole, prior to even meeting
I want it even more. Like, we're sitting here in this battle scene. Like, I want, that one guy from the beginning of Way of the Kings that I was attached to for, like, a hot minute.
Sure, you want, like,
where,
that,
all of his people are, like, dying around him, and he's, like, all of a sudden running around everywhere, and, like, there's, like, this edge of, like, oh my god, all of this is happening around me right now. Whoo, hoo, hoo. Like, I've lost Achilles. I do not see him. Where is he? Kind of, like, bit.
Yeah.
And I would love, like, that more.
Sure. Yeah.
I will say, though, the one aspect that I didn't get of this whole entire thing is what is her name? The wife, the first wife. The scene between Pet and the wife.
Oh my God!
So
okay,
here's my thing. One, I get that it's there, but two, I was like, why? Why are we putting this here? Do not put this here.
Okay,
what the
so
heck?
that scene terrified me.
Is there an actual reason for that scene to be there?
I don't know.
Or was it just put there? Because I'm like,
I don't really know. I can't remember. There's an interview between Madeline Miler.
Why?
And Gregory.
Why?
There's an interview.
But granted,
between,
I also was disgusted by the scene in general.
Yeah,
but you're supposed
yes,
to.
You're supposed to be. It's awful. Yeah, but so there's an interview between Madeline Miler and Gregory Maguire, the author of Wicked, in which and he's like, super gay. I say that in a friendly way, but he is, and he sort of just asks her point blank. He's like, all right, so look, you totally freaked me out. I'm a gay man, and you freaked me out when that scene with the wife, right?
Yeah.
Where she literally assaults Patroclus.
Like, throw herself on him.
Yeah, she literally assaults him. And I don't remember...
It's even worse because she's literally sitting there now. Spoiler alert for people who haven't read it yet. Sorry, we're like halfway through the episode already.
Yeah.
But anyways, like, she's, at that point, and I'm like, she literally just slapped him. What in the mental health I am worried for you bipolar is going on?
Yes, I do think that there are several... I mean, obviously, there are several things going into that scene.
Right.
Which is, one... Patroclus, it takes getting to Troy before you see Patroclus begin to have an identity, like a real self-identity. Because until then, at first he's the son of the king that nobody wanted.
And then he's just watching Achilles
so he's getting beat up all the time. So then he gets sent to live with Achilles' father, whose name I can't remember right now. And then...
Perlus?
Something like that, yeah, with a P. And Achilles becomes his identity. Like, Patroclus wants to become Achilles at one point. And I think, doesn't Chiron, when they go to train with Chiron, I think Chiron, points that out at one point. Like, he's just like, Achilles is not always going to be here. He has, things to do. So...
he's like, can you make your personality something other than
you're gonna have
Achilles?
to learn. But he's Patroclus, and he has to learn. So then, by the time you get to the scene where he's being assaulted by Achilles' vengeful wife, he still has no identity, and she sees that and takes full advantage of it.
I was just sitting there, just going why is she doing this?
But also, if you look at it from her perspective, which is hard to do in a book that's narrated by him, right? But if you think about it from her perspective, she's just been married to, the hottest warrior on the planet right now, who is also a demigod. So he's, immortal and hot. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't want to sleep with her. In fact, he'd rather dress as one of her, her father's handmaidens then sleep with her.
Well, duh.
And then the reason, she's like, of course, so she's going to quest for a reason, right? And then that reason shows up, and it's Patroclus. Get out of town. She's like, absolutely not. Somebody's giving me a baby today. And so she goes for it. I'm not justifying her in any way, shape, or form, because I hate her. But I and part of it too, the further on you read, Patroclus even starts to think. She
already had a child by the time that she does that.
Did she already have one?
She's pregnant.
Who had the first child with Achilles, the child that was just running around?
The wife that we're talking about.
That was her too? Okay.
That's her.
Okay.
This is before the child even shows up, but the child exists. It's just not born yet.
But she hasn't. That's right.
This is why it doesn't really make as much sense, is because she's already pregnant. That's the thing.
Does she know?
Yes.
That
She's literally. She literally tells him that she's PO'd at him.
Yeah.
And then that she has to go into her confinement the next day. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so this is her last hurrah kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And at the same time, she's like, yeah, I already lain with him already. And she's talking really smugly that she's lain with Achilles already. And then Patroclus is sitting there just going, yeah, twice. Because Achilles already told me. And I'm just going,
because guess who's been laying with Patroclus ever since he got there? Achilles.
And then she's telling him all this stuff. And then she just turns around, she leaves. And then she comes back because she's crying, and he's gonna comfort her because, like, oh, they're there, and it's the mistake.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting there just going,
yeah.
Did we really need to go from her crying to this?
Yeah, she was...
I was like, I would have loved a little bit more for, like, redemption-wise, but whatever. My main issue is with the Kindle edition of this book, not the actual book itself. I will say, this book is lovely. It's a cute little simple read, in my opinion.
It is simple. Yeah, no, it's
I think it's a little bit too much simple for me, but, like, that's fine.
That's because you haven't finished it yet.
That's because...
It gets...
I'm on chapter 23.
No, I know. Trust me. It is, especially at that moment, like after that particular chapter and that moment and everything, it seems like it's gonna go in...
Granted, that's also my issue with a lot of other things in
a direction
Not
you
with
think,
Madeline Miler herself, but like other books in general, is where they spend way too long setting stuff up, and then they give you like 3 chapters of the actual plot / stuff happening, and I'm like...
Oh, no. So this book, I will say, like, in terms of stuff happening... Once you get to Troy, like once the Trojan War is announced and Agamemnon and you go and you...
We're already there.
Yeah, but it like, you linger... Because this is one of the things I didn't really realize because I've not read the Iliad yet. I'm going to.
Good.
But I had not realized this until reading this book. The Trojan War is long. Like...
Yeah, and it's Patroclus' fault.
Nearly 2 decades.
It's his fault.
And it's like, oh. And so she kind of draws all of that out. And...
Well, it's his fault in the first place. You know why? Because they were sitting there and they're about to go to Troy and they learn, like, oh, yeah, this is the Iliad. So if you haven't read the Iliad yet, are you really like, okay, fine, whatever. But, like, they're sitting there and, like... They tell him, or I think it's Odysseus who tells him, who's like, you're gonna die when you beat Hector. And so Patroclus is like, well then let's just draw this out. Don't kill Hector. And so that's the whole reason this ends up going for 20 years. Is because Patroclus is just like, yeah, let's just not.
Well, okay, initially. But
and Achilles is just like, yeah, sure.
But
what the heck?
But Agamemnon.
I know.
Agamemnon is the reason that it took a decade and a half.
He's a scary dude.
Oh, I hated him. Oh, okay. Yes, I hate Agamemnon. I think you're supposed to hate Agamemnon.
You are supposed to hate Agamemnon.
I really hated Agamemnon in this book because I was like, bruh.
I mean, he's the one that sacrifices his daughter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like, how are you going to talk smack to, like, your only demigod hero? Not your best bet, bro, but he's a king who's gathered all the Greek nations. Like, he has the biggest head in the world right now, especially because Helen of Troy was...
Do you think
all that
his head is so big that if a wind gust was so much, it would just knock him over?
Yeah. I loathe Agamemnon. He's terrible. And I love every time he thinks that he's going to punk Achilles, Achilles is like, cute! And one-ups him every time. And I'm just like, yes! But at the same time, I also like how in the later half of the novel, because again, Patroclus is narrating all of this, so you get all of the drama between Achilles and Agamemnon, and Patroclus kind of saying like, okay, Achilles, we can't be here forever. Maybe we should, calm down, or like, don't kill Hector, but maybe give Agamemnon something. Like, there's all of that. But while Achilles is away and all the soldiers are killing farmers and whatever, Patroclus has to do other things because he's there as Achilles' lover. Like, everyone knows it. So he's basically become one of the women.
Yep.
And so this entire community of women suddenly become available to the book and to him, which I was like, that to me is like one of the best like stretches of the novel, is watching Patroclus like befriend Briseis, who is the princess of Troy, but also a priestess, and so she's a virgin and all this whole thing, and like assuring her like, I know that Achilles looks like a brute because, well, he is, but also he's really sweet and he loves me and he'll love you too if you give him a chance. And there's like kind of an inkling that there's gonna be a triangle at one point, but then Hector kills Patroclus, and then, well,
the Iliad happens.
Yeah, the Iliad, exactly. The Iliad happens, and then, it becomes a thing. But the way that she builds all of that up, just like, it made so many other things clear to me that I were never really, because again, I've only seen Troy, like, and that movie is terrible. So you know, there were a lot of things left out in my mind, and I haven't read the Iliad, so I was like, okay, what's the big deal? I don't understand. So that book like really like illuminated all of that, but from the perspective of a character who isn't a soldier, because he's really bad at it. He's not a good prince, because he's also bad at that. He's literally just Achilles' lover.
I mean, he's good at medical, like medicinal.
Yeah, he's very, very good. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I like how also like culturally you get this idea that his weakness has a place to go, like in their society. Sure, it means he's going to be essentially a woman and a wife, but that doesn't seem to bother him all that much, and it actually gives him a community and a place to be in. And like watching him self-actualize, which I think is the whole point of the book, is really, really like moving at some point to me, I think. Anyway, I don't know.
My favorite thing to do is I like to read really mean mad. So I do like this. Don't
like
get
reviews.
me wrong. Yeah,
I love reading
like
really bad reviews.
I quite like the book as well. Just to
So-
get
Yay! Oh yeah, Grant hasn't really said anything.
Grant, tell us what you like about this book, huh?
What do
While I
Because
pull
you-
up,
after we just talked
while
about
I pull
everything
up
that's
the
good.
really bad reviews, so we can talk about those because I think they're really
Yeah, so
entertaining.
you listened to it, right?
I listened to it, and I agree. The narrator is really, really good.
Yeah,
I forget the guy's name.
Fraser something. Michael Fraser, Douglas Fraser.
No, but he just jumps from character to character effortlessly, and you can tell who he is like just by talking.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, like, is it one of my favorite books? No, but I deeply enjoyed it. It was very fun and obviously sad and tragic at the end. And I'm glad I read the Iliad a long time ago because I forgot what happened.
Oh, good. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Do you think that would have impacted your like ability to feel what the book is trying to get you to feel? If
That's
you...
it's a possibility. Maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to predict.
It is,
Like,
yeah.
I just know my experience listening to it just now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and there's adventure, there's a romance. Yes.
Well, and I like too that like his Achilles' mother.
The goddess.
Yeah. What do we think?
Thetis?
What do we think about Achilles'
I mean,
water nymph goddess mother?
Hera 2.0.
That's a good point. Yeah. A Hera who's mad that she's not Hera.
Like, that's literally it. Like, if you sit there and you look at his mom, like, the whole entire time, like...
She was horrible.
Like...
I almost see her as like a force of nature. Like as you'd look at a god or a demigod rather. So I guess I had a little more, like I just looked at her as like a force.
A force and an entity. Yeah. You know, so this is common, like Madeline Miler does this as well in the first chapter of Circe, because Circe's father is Helios. And so she gives Helios that same feeling, like that same expression. But one of the things, like her siblings are terrible. So two of her younger siblings who are both proclaimed as more beautiful than Circe because literally, Circe is born. Her mother, her human mother, takes one look at her. No, her water nymph mother, not her human mother. Takes one look at her and goes, "We can do better." And then grabs Helios and goes off and makes her siblings because they're gods. They age quicker. Anyway, so Helios is described in this in that same way of Achilles' mother, of being like more of a force, because he's literally supposed to be the embodiment of the sun, right? So he has that kind of feeling. But you know how like in the myths he has all those like pigs, like the sacred pigs? Well, he takes Circe to go see the sacred pigs, and two of his other daughters are watching over the pigs, and they're not nice either, and they're really nasty and whatever. So you get the impression Circe's not supposed to fit in anywhere, right?
Right.
So she goes back home, and her two younger siblings, who are constantly like they're described as like the those animals, ermine, like they're described as like ermines, always constantly wrapped around each other, but they're a brother and sister, so it's like
the two snakes who are wrapped around like little Hermes' sticks.
It's literally like they're Lannisters, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's
Understood.
the impression that you get. So they're like snickering, like, ha ha ha, she doesn't know. And she's like, what don't I know? And they're like, you want us to tell you? And she's like, what don't I know? And they're like, he has carnal relations with the pigs. And she's like, no, not my dad. And they're like, yeah, he transforms into a bull and takes them, and that's how we get more pigs. That's the only reason people think the pigs are immortal. And I was just like, your siblings should all die. Because that's horrible, but, like, he's a force of nature, but he's also, like...
Yeah, Zeus does the exact same thing. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so I love that she did, like, in both books, like, kind of stick to the Greek gods as, like, not
forces
just...
of nature.
Yeah, they're forces of nature.
Because doesn't she come out as wind at one point? Because she's like...
Because she's... Yeah, she, like, attacks...
PO'd.
Yeah, like, I think it's when they're in when she ships him off to get married to that woman, and then Patroclus follows after him, and then he reveals himself, and they're like...
Well, it happens for a second time, too, because when they were going to, like, what is it, Troy or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
When they're going towards that area, she literally stops the wind.
That's right.
Until the second wife gets there.
Yeah.
To marry him. And I'm like, this woman is really just trying to heteronormative everything.
Which is fun, right? Like,
Which is hilarious.
Yeah, taking
But at the same time, I kind of conflate her with Hera 2.0, like, in terms of personality.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
In the terms of the fact where, like, you get there, and, like, especially when you first, like, meet her or whatever, she's just very much like, no, you can't do this. Mm-hmm. It gives very much, like, Hera, Percy Jackson, but, like, also, like, Demeter on, like, Persephone.
Sure.
Like, in terms of, like, very just, like, overbearing, like, you need to follow my way exactly, otherwise
very
I'm
queenly.
going to have problems, and I'm sitting here going, you're a water nymph, chill.
Which is interesting, too, because not only as a water nymph, but she is also... not only as a water nymph, but, like, she's obviously unhappy because she didn't even want to have Achilles. Like, it's not that she didn't want to have Achilles, because once she had him, she's overprotective. But, like, the method by which she's forced, because she's forced by a mortal man, he's a king, but he's a mortal man, to do this. And as a water nymph, like, as a force of nature, she feels that should never have happened, and none of the gods take her side. Like, including Hera. They're all just like, welcome to the planet and get over yourself.
We've all had this happen.
Yeah, literally. And it's just like, yeah. So that, like having that little spin on Greek mythology is really fun. Yeah.
In a way, it's a super weird comparison, but it almost felt like not in tone, but like The Lion King 1.5. You know what that is? Where you're following the same story that you know, but like from a slightly different perspective, and you see.
That's literally what this book is.
Yeah. That's true. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Honestly, I just had to find a reason to reference The Lion King 1.5. It's only took me 3 years.
I love The Lion King 1.5, to be honest. It's a train wreck, but I love it.
It's a train wreck.
So, one, I said I would talk about why I'm mad at Amazon for their Kindle edition.
You have 12 minutes.
Amazon! Why do you do this? So I'm reading the Kindle edition of this book.
Yes.
And this is the quote-unquote enhanced edition, which is the only edition they were offering on Kindle, by the way.
Yeah.
So, like, you're sitting there thinking, okay, fine, whatever. I open this because I'm reading it on my phone when I don't have my Kindle with me because, like, why would I not take advantage of the fact that I can read my Kindle books, like, in multiple formats?
Yeah, right.
And so I'm getting started reading this, and this book while it's great, I love it, great, sure, fine, whatever. Every single chapter starts with this so lovely, like, little bit that says, and I quote, hold on, because I really just need to actually have this here. There is video content at this location that is not currently supported on your device. Caption for this video is displayed below. And the caption reads, audio extract chapter 1. That is literally it. Like, you would think that they would add a little bit of a transcript or something like that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
To make it more, like, friendly to people who are, like, accessibility problems.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No! However, when you open it on your Kindle, it's an excerpt from the audiobook. And it's just a random excerpt from a random point in the chapter.
I wonder how much of that is a rights battle between
at the same time,
agent, the editor, and the author.
There are multiple videos at the end of the book that are added onto this, which if I go on my... So if I'm on, like, my phone, you can't look at them whatsoever.
Oh.
Which, like, you can't look at the videos.
Right.
It just does not let you look at them
It'll just tell you what they're about. Maybe,
and it says that there's a caption for this video displayed below. There is no caption. There is no caption. And then at the same time, Amazon also does this really cool thing, which I like. I know we really shouldn't be promoting the Bezos machine at this point, but you can buy the book and you can sometimes get the audio narrated on top of it, for an additional $7-8, which is fantastic. I like it because it highlights the words whenever I'm reading. So if I keep my eyes away for a moment, I can bring it back. This book doesn't have that. And so it makes it really inconvenient when I have to get it from Hoopla and play Hoopla and have my Kindle going at the same time. Because I can't keep them together. Because if I'm looking at this, the reason I do it is because I read too fast. So if I'm listening to the audiobook and I'm listening to it at a nice speed, I will still read too fast in the actual Kindle edition of the book and go farther ahead. And so, I'm playing the racing game. So, Amazon, fix it. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I enjoyed reading it, but at the same time, I'm like, I feel like this could have been better audio-wise, and I would have loved to have listened to it at the same time as I read it.
Yeah.
Audio-wise, because I feel like that would have made me more interested, and I find that to be a thing at the moment. However, also, I'm looking at these 1-star reviews, and I'm laughing so much right now.
I'm interested, because I haven't actually read the 1-star reviews for Song of Achilles yet.
So this is from 2018.
Yeah.
And this is 1.5 stars, and the one quote I will say from this, which is just really, really, really funny. And so for anybody who is gonna get super protective over the book for a moment, chill. This is somebody else's opinion, not mine.
It's fine. I'll be fine. I promise.
And I quote, and I'm sorry, but this.
No, it's fine.
If I wanted to read about the most useless, passive, and boring narrator being in love with this attractive golden god dude with no personality, and when he does have one, he just turns into a selfish prick, I would reread Twilight. Seriously, can he be even more of a Bella? Talking about Patroclus.
That's interesting.
That's one of the things that was said.
Can we call Patroclus Simplicles?
Followed by somebody goes, the prophecy said that Achilles would die shortly after Hector. You don't know how many times I was rooting for this dude to die just so everything could end soon. Just someone please kill him now. That's in the same review. Meanwhile, Rick Riordan rates it at 5 stars.
Oh yes, no, Rick really loves
really loves it. Somebody rates it 2 stars, and this is what year? Was this 2023? This was 2023, so this was more recent. And so this is somebody who kind of says that the romance falls flat.
Yeah, but that's for people so I will say this. One of the components that is obvious and yet well utilized here, there's a particular trope in all of gay romances, particularly male gay romances, that this book does masterfully, which is why I'm like, she had to have read a lot of gay male romances to get this. There's the soft artistic boy in love with the sport boy.
Yeah.
And she just does that in Greece.
She just does that in Greece, and I noticed that.
That's literally what it is. And so for me, it was just because I love that trope endlessly, all the time. Yes, if we're going to be critical of it, right? Heartstopper uses that trope. And how much do I love Heartstopper? Gobs and gobs and gobs. Because, sporty bi boy is in love with artsy, cultural soft boy. I love that trope. I don't know why, because I'm not in that kind of relationship, and I don't know that I want to be, but I think it's such a bizarrely common fantasy, particularly for young people, that it makes sense if you're going to write young people falling in love for the first time and hoping that it will last, that they fall into some kind of trope, and anything outside of that is perceived as a conflict, right? So the wife,
right,
the mother,
right,
all of Greece, all of the kings are just kind of will you leave your lover at home like the rest of us? And Achilles is no, I bring my soft boy to war with me. And that's why I'm how can you say he has no personality? The best thing about Achilles is that he's all right, you know what? I'm putting a stop to this. I'm not dressing like a woman anymore. I'm leaving my wife behind, and I'm taking my lover boy to war with me. I love that. And then he comes home every day. Like, I love when he comes back to the tents and
all
he's
bloody,
like,
covered head to toe in
yes,
blood.
yes,
Yeah.
I
And you're
love
just
that.
like, well, okay, there
right?
you go.
I'm just like, yeah, that's good. Like, who would? Yeah, I don't know. That I would not necessarily. Again, I don't want to be living under tents while my
I will say
partner
that a
goes out
lot
and
of
kills
these...
people. But there's something about that, like, trope that works. for
I
some
will
reason.
say though that a lot of people who are reading these, I feel like they're way too much who are giving these reviews as I'm reading them,
Yeah.
don't get the little like tiny like art student skinny little boy with like super jock like trope. They don't get that trope, which
Yeah.
is like something that like a lot of fan fiction writers, like a lot of us like who read fan fiction in fandom spaces, we already know this.
Or even just romance
Like, we
novels.
all know that this is like a big thing.
Yeah.
Like we all know this exists.
Yeah.
However, at the same time, like a lot of these people seem to, which I mean, I also understand, like, that would have been cute if it was, I would have been, like, so more gung-ho if it was, but, like, they seem to be really wanting, like, the two really buff dudes, like, as a thing. Like, because they just really...
Yes, I mean, like, go read an Alexander the Great novel.
No, their
I mean,
whole entire
like-
thing is, like, they're talking about, like, how Patroclus is just a soft little cute boy, and I'm like, bruh, chill.
I think what I do think is interesting, though, and I think it's probably just true. I think people like action-packed narratives, and so they hear like, "Oh, this is set in ancient Greece," and they think Spartacus. Mm-hmm. Even though this is not at all, at all. Especially, it's the Trojan War, it's the Iliad. They think Spartacus, and this is not Spartacus. So, I mean, you know.
Sorry, somebody else says that they just read it because of TikTok, and they were really underwhelmed because TikTok really just hyped it up way too
Yes,
much.
Yeah.
And somebody goes, my life was not ruined and I did not cry at all. I'm only giving it 2 stars because Patroclus is a nice boy who deserves nice things. Achilles can go hang a kite. Achilles is the sort of boyfriend you listen to your best friend go on and on about, but secretly wish they would break up because he's just really high-key toxic. Justice for Patroclus.
I mean, it's a constant
That's
struggle
funny.
between his love for Patroclus and his duty as a demigod, and
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I love about, like, once Patroclus is gone, because I remember, like, leading up to that point, you know, because you know, if you know the Iliad, right?
Yeah.
Or if you've seen Troy, whichever one, you know the steps. Like, you know, you're like, oh, wait a minute, but this is the part, there's a night raid, Hector does his thing, the people are mad because Achilles won't go out and kill Hector because he hates Agamemnon, which we all should. That's why Helen ran away from him, because Agamemnon sucks. Let's be real.
So somebody also says that in a thing, Thetis, angry mom, hates gays.
Yeah. Yes, because she is exactly. That woman. That goddess. Whatever. So then he, you know, Patroclus puts on the armor, goes out, and, you know, he's gonna die. Up to the moment of his death, I thought to myself, but wait a minute.
There's more.
There's still more pages in this book. How is she going to? And, like, the pages get smaller and smaller, and I'm like, okay, but you're too good of a writer to pivot this. Like, if you give me a epilogue in third person, I'm going to throw this book. I was, like, losing my mind. And then she makes him a ghost.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, right, the underworld. I completely forgot about that. And that, like, Patroclus's, like, self-actualizing journey gets to continue, and he gets to complete that by, like, not only just going to see the tomb of Achilles, but, like, going to, like, live
Tomb of
in
Achilles,
that, like,
that's literally also his tomb.
yeah, right, right. So he gets to, like, live in peace, but only if Thetis allows him, right? Like, she's, like, at, like, standing guard, like, absolutely not. And he's like, but
I'm literally buried right there.
yeah. And then you
Like,
find out, of course, like, towards the end, like, the base. Essentially, it's sort of implied that, like, the book is Patroclus narrating his whole, like, journey with Achilles, and that's his, like, offering to Thetis, and she's just like, okay, fine, you know, which is nice.
then
she
she writes his name on the
yeah, and so you get that nice, like, ending, because it is a romance novel,
Yes.
that's what it's supposed to be, but you get that nice ending, so, anyway.
I think next time, we're gonna talk about others.
Again?
Yeah.
No, I know. I know, I'm just...
library.